So, hi everyone. Today I'm speaking with Danilo Kreimer. Danilo is a growth specialist for micro consultancies. He's also founded Boutique Consulting Club, under which he has advised over 50 boutique consultancies, across the globe, helping them scaling up. Yeah. So, welcome to the discussion, Danilo.
Thanks for inviting, Harsh.
Fantastic. Danilo, could you start by telling us about your journey into the consulting world and the inception of Boutique Consulting Club? What inspired you to create it?
Yeah. So I guess my inception, my journey into the consulting world is unconventional. Unlike many in the field, I never worked as an employee in a consulting firm.
Wow,
my entire experience it has been as an independent consultant and business operator.
Okay.
So that gives me a perspective on the industry that's different from those who have a corporate background. That's for sure. Now the Boutique Consulting Club, it was born out of an experiment, really. Initially, it was only a blog for my advisory practice. Sorry. Initially, it was only a blog for my advisory practice.
Okay.
Around 3 years ago,
Okay.
I decided to take writing more seriously, to write more. So as a way to commit, I challenged myself to publish a short blog every day. You might have seen. It's a quite effective way to get you started.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, I wrote daily for 420 days in a row. So it was successful.
This was all about the consulting industry, or was this anything that came to your mind?
It was mostly about marketing strategy and business development for consulting firms, for professional service firms.
Got it. Given your outside-in perspective, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would write about what I was experiencing with clients, stories about work with founders, and of course, after you write that much, at that point, I decided to change the newsletter from daily to weekly. But after you write that much, your insights become much sharper.
Polished.
That's for sure. So this was the experiment, and my main motivation was really in the learning, not specifically in the impact that the blog would have in my practice. So it was a big surprise for me when I saw the positive response from consultancy founders. Slowly, more consultants started to discover the blog. They joined the email list and they began engaging with the content. The consultancy partners, they started to reply with comments and questions, and then I would use their questions for new blog posts. So it started this huge positive feedback loop, really, of content creation.
Interesting.
And over time, I noticed that there was a gap in the market. Throughout these conversations, throughout the content, looking at what performed better, and I saw that there are literally thousands of marketing blogs for freelancers.
Right.
So there's this first big group of people and organizations that support solo consultants, coaches, advisors, and basically helping them to pay their bills, kind of break the feast and famine cycle, kind of get them in a stable place. And there's this second group, which also composed by experts, organizations that help scale up firms. So consultancies with 20, 50, 100 people staff, who already have a middle management level, already have formal teams, formal departments, professional services, and the goal there is almost always about almost always to cross the scaling gap, right? To increase valuation, and at the end, ultimately to help partners sell the firm. But those in the middle, there was a gap in the middle there. There's this whole universe of smaller consultancies, often with less than 10 employees, in the 6-digit revenue range, so doing 200, 400, 600K a year, who are just underserved.
Correct.
with specialized content, support, resources and you can call them lifestyle consultancies, you can call them micro consultancies. These people, they're founders, they don't necessarily want to scale to a huge size and sell the company, but they do want to afford hiring a team to support them. They do want to pay themselves a decent compensation. They do want to professionalize the business. So we decided to serve this group of consultancies who are doing under $1 million in yearly revenue, with a small internal team. So all of our content, events, programs, they are designed for these founders and partners.
Right. Even though they are lifestyle consultants, they still want to scale up to a certain extent, right? They're not envisioning a 500-member consulting team, yes, but scaling up is still one of their challenges. Is that what you'd say?
It is. It is one of the challenges because, of course, we are often careful to look at context. We have the consulting term. It includes a bunch of companies who are very different. But when we look at those smaller consultancies, scaling is a key priority, because the founders and the partners are usually the bottleneck. When you're looking at revenue or pipeline generation, in this seller-doer model, especially in this early stage, a lot comes through the personal network and activity of those partners, and that becomes, in some sense, the bottleneck. They don't have the capabilities or the systems to perform consistent marketing and keep the pipeline full. So you start to see all kinds of problems in terms of balancing delivery, client delivery work and business development activities, for example, which is a key issue we almost always see. So at some point you need to start thinking about processes, systems, and bringing support. Interesting.
Now, I can completely relate to that, Danilo. We work with hundreds of boutique consulting firms, micro consultancies, or independent consultants. And the number one problem is this business development and the lack of a clear sales or marketing engine, where they are still in the hunt what you can eat kind of a mindset, where if there are a lot of projects, then the focus shifts towards delivery of those projects, and they don't have internal processes to have a ready pipeline of feeding in more projects after the current project is over, right? So after 6 months, when these 3 or 4 projects get over simultaneously, suddenly they see a gap where they have excess capacity and they don't have enough projects, and then they'll wish they traveled back in time a couple of months and they pitched for more projects, right? So that balancing act, while it sounds very logical and it sounds very straightforward, but why do you think most micro consultancies struggle with that, with operationalizing their marketing or business development effort?
Well, there are a few. I think that there are a few sources. First, there's definitely a mindset component to it. Founders are reluctant to look for external help, or founders neglect the importance of having marketing capabilities, a consistent pipeline, and sometimes they're just not comfortable. They can't find the time. They don't have it's what we call the self-management systems to allocate their time between different tasks. They're doing what they can with the time and energy that they have. It's very difficult to say no to opportunities as well. So very often we see consultancy founders who are saying yes to opportunities that are not really a good fit to their positioning, and that becomes a barrier for them to bring in the right clients when they find them. So I think that the average consultancy at least from our experience, needs to be much more strict in how they qualify opportunities and how many opportunities they're taking in, but also much more focus on building capabilities instead of running campaigns. As you said, it's the lack of a marketing engine, and people are very, the idea of running campaigns, marketing campaigns, is very enticing. We have a new service coming out, let's run a new campaign. We want to get into this new segment, let's run a new campaign. Or we have no pipeline, let's run a new campaign. And this is good, but campaigns, you start and stop. They're infrequent. And as you say, when you're running campaigns, you're creating this peaks of activity that make it really difficult for your delivery team, or if you're the one delivering, to spread it out throughout the year, to have to be able to plan capacity really for your firm. It makes it very difficult. So if there's something that we see, is that those consultancies that prioritize building an actual engine that keeps running throughout the year, it's usually much more healthy for their firm as a whole. It makes the work easier. It makes everything easier, really.
Got it. Interesting. So apart from, let's say, the marketing side of things, Danilo, what are the other unique challenges that you see these micro consultancies face when compared to some of the larger firms?
I think that whenever we compare based on business size, so we're comparing smaller firms with larger consulting firms, the easy answer is always to say that the biggest challenge is limited resources, right? That's the easy answer. But I don't think it's true, really. Of course, larger firms can invest more into marketing and growth. Larger firms, they have more extensive networks. They can pay more for talent. Yes, larger firms are more scalable. But whenever someone brings up the limited resources argument or complaint, I always ask, okay, but how do you explain the fact that many boutique consultancies or smaller consultancies, they not only do well, but they completely dominate some niches where larger firms seem to struggle? They grow consistently, they are profitable, they have a respected brand, a respected reputation in their space. So the way I see it, the real challenge is for boutique firms is not the lack of resources, but rather how the founders and partners leverage their unique strengths. I think this is the real challenge. When we look at smaller consultancies, if you're running a smaller consultancy, you can have a level of specialization that big firms cannot replicate. You can make decisions faster. You can be more creative in your solutions. You can build closer, more personal relationship with clients. So all of those things are sources of competitive advantage.
Absolutely.
But boutique consultancy partners, they need to actually embrace them. So again, for me, the challenge is not the challenge for those consultancies, for micro consultancies, is not to compete with the resources of larger firms. If that's your goal, you already lost. So the challenge is really to identify and capitalize on your unique strengths and value propositions. And if you could do that, you will find a space in the market, and clients will value that.
Right. That's a fair point, Danilo. I think the first problem that you want boutiques to solve for is their core value proposition or core area of specialization, right? Just to be able to identify what is it that I will do really, really well, better than some of the larger firms, and create a niche in it, right? I think there's a phrase we use, start with a thin edge of the wedge and then maybe expand, right? At what point of time do you think resources start becoming a problem for them? Because again, they'll reach a point when getting a project is not as difficult for them because of their network and reputation and the kind of work that they've done in the past. But the challenge also becomes the ability to deliver projects successfully and deliver multiple projects successfully, right? So at what point of time in their journey do you think that becomes a challenge for them?
Resource management.
Yeah, resource management, yeah. Or, getting enough talent, or if they are hyper specialized, if there's a project which has, an additional area which is a part of the project, but they don't specialize in that, or they're not experts in that, right? There's a small analytics component on that project, but they're hyper specialized elsewhere. So delivering projects which require adjacent capabilities, number one, or which sometimes require additional capacities, because you can never be prepared, optimal capacity wise, right? So
Right.
how do you see that playing out?
This is indeed an important point to discuss. I remember I had this conversation a while ago with a partner who was in the process of narrowing their specialization. So they were already specialized in a specific vertical, and now they were hyper specializing, so serving a vertical and offering a specific service. And the question that he put to me was, what happens when I'm so specialized that there's not enough opportunities? Right? Can a consultancy be too specialized?
Right.
And the answer is, of course, yes, it can happen. There's a range there. You need to stand out in a market and be seen as a specialist and add value to your propositions by showing that you have worked with similar companies or have solved similar problems in the past. But if you niche so much that there's not enough opportunities in the market for you to survive, then that's a problem as well.
Right.
I think that this might happen at some point. It's much more common that that consultancies are too broadly positioned. But here I would say that at least from what I've seen in the market, is many small consultancies using collaboration as a way to kind of at least reduce this negative side effects. And those collaborations can take many forms. So as you said, if you want to offer more solutions to your clients, for example, or you can't deliver everything, you can partner with other consultancies or firms that have complementary skills. So for example, a marketing consultancy, they might partner with a CRM or a BSA platform provider. Another example, and we're seeing that a lot, is associations. So you can start or join a group of independent consultants to share information, share market research, or you can also team up to bid for larger projects that would be difficult for you to handle by yourself. So these are some examples, right?
Interesting. How do you see IBC's hybrid delivery model, where, as you know, what we do is we augment the capacities and capabilities of small consulting firms and independent consultants globally by providing our in-house team of management consultants. How do you see that hybrid delivery model sort of solving that problem that you just addressed, right?
I think it's a fair model. There's a lot of value in there. It's always important, especially for smaller consultancies, to have Rolodex, as we used to call, of kind of trusted providers or collaborators that you can eventually partner with. I think this is especially true for smaller firms, since you don't have enough similar opportunities in the pipeline that justify an internal hire. So for example, if IBC's team can help with market research, for example, I might have 20 engagements a year, but if I'm only helping 2 or 3 clients a year with market research, that doesn't justify me bringing in talent, right? So having a network of kind of competent collaborators, this allows you to take in bigger engagements, or at the very least help your clients with kind of relevant referrals and introductions, right? I might not do that, but I can put you in touch with a trusted provider that I know that does. So there's always value here. I think that what you do not want to do is to neglect that and say no to opportunities because you're afraid you can't deliver on them, even if they're a good fit for your positioning. You do not want to do that. I see a lot of founders from smaller consultancies, especially in the early stage, they're afraid to fail on the delivery side, so they're actually self-sabotaging growth fairly often. There are good opportunities that come up from marketing, business development activity, and they say, well, I'm not entirely sure I can deliver well on that. Of course, reputation needs to be prioritized, but if you do not have this network of collaborators or partners like IBC's team who you can bring in when you need, and you're comfortable working with, and they are part of the team, they can work together with you, they can face the client with you, if you're open to it, then it's important. I see a lot of value in that.
Understood. Interesting. I think there's also, the success also depends on how these partnerships are executed, right? So when you bring an external partner to deliver a project, in your view, how can these micro consultancies set themselves up for success when they bring in an external partner? What are the do's and don'ts, or any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that you should definitely look for best practices there. The last number I saw, if I'm not mistaken, was that 80% of all strategic partnerships fail. So that's a huge number. But the good news is that when it was set up properly, it became the most, or the second most important channel of opportunities for consultancies, specifically for client acquisition or lead generation. When we look at research, after referrals, which are the traditional number one source of opportunities, you have strategic partnerships as an effective source of new opportunities. So it works. When it works really well, but you need to set it up properly, as you said. And there, I think that it's much, it's a lot. It depends a lot on the context of the partnership. There are some best practices, but I saw partnerships worked. I saw partnerships work well even when they were set up in a very informal way. You can, maybe if it's a new relationship, you can start small, saying, okay, maybe I'll introduce 2 or 3 existing relationships to this partner. Let's work together. Let's see how it works. And then as it picks up, as you kind of build a relationship and see how it goes, you can even formalize it. You can set common goals, common KPIs in terms of how many opportunities you'll be sharing. But when those collaborations fail, what I saw is that the reasons why they fail were the most silly reasons, you can say, were the kind of smaller things, smaller details that you don't think about when you're entering the partnership, such as, okay, we're creating this delivery partnership. Who is facing the client?
I see.
How often we are facing the client? Who's billing the client?
Right.
How are we sharing this revenue?
Yeah.
And the agreement part.
Right.
How are we formalizing this? So all of these practical operational details that you don't often think, but they become friction points.
Got it.
They become points of fighting, of discussion if they are not agreed upon in the start. So I would look at all of those, and I also have some resources for the founders who are interested in it. I have some resources on collaboration with best practices for whoever is listening to this conversation. If you're interested in it, I can share it.
Sure, absolutely. I'll share a link to that. I think that's also extremely important and valid point. The day-to-day operations of the project delivery, if that's not agreed upon, it just leads to more confusion and lack of trust and failing of the partnership. So can completely relate to that, Danilo. So thanks so much for sharing your insights. Finally, just you're looking into the future. What's your vision for the consulting industries in 2024? What are some of the macro trends, or how do you see the industry evolving this year? Right? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So some bigger trends affect the consulting industry as a whole, right?
No.
And these are the things that most growth advisors have been discussing in public for a while. So the rise of AI, push towards digitalization and automation, hyper specialization, all of those things are being discussed out in the open. Now, I think it gets more and more interesting when we look at those macro trends and see how they affect consultancies operating in different industries or providing different kinds of services. So, as you know, the consulting label groups together practices with very different characteristics. So we have IT consultancies, financial advisors, HR consultancies, strategy boutiques. Each of these segments will likely be impacted in different ways. But I think that those macro trends, especially digitalization, the rise of AI, hyper specialization as a way to strengthen your value propositions, they are very relevant. I think every consultancy founder should take a deeper look there. What I would add here is that looking at trends is very enticing. It's interesting. It's interesting to imagine what your business should look like or could look like in the future. Threats, opportunities, and it's a valid exercise. But if you're a consultancy doing under $1 million a year, as most of my network is, there's a huge opportunity on just doing the basics right. There's an incredible number of consultancies who do not follow best practices, do not have the right measurement in place, do not know how to set goals, do not have KPIs for marketing, business development, who do not have processes in place, who do not check on the status of their pipeline every week, who do not have a process to nurture relationships, who do not have a process to expand on existing client relationships. So these are the basics.
Understood.
So what I would urge is look at your house, look at how it is now, and if you focus on just doing the basics right,
you're halfway there.
You will be ahead of most of those in the market who.
Interesting. Thanks, Danilo. That was some interesting observation and interesting thoughts. So thanks so much for sharing them with us. This concludes the end of the discussion today.